And welcome to the Legal Lounge here on CRN Digital Talk Radio, CRNTalk.com, streaming live coast to coast and around the world. Also available in stunning high-definition video on CRNTalk.com, also on CRN's custom-built Roku channel, Tiki Live, and of course on CRNTalk.com. I am joined, as always, by the one and the only, an active attorney, U.S. Army veteran, a doctor of law, undergraduate degree in physics, and author of a book that has proven to be a guideline for the Supreme Court now and in the future. That book, American Illusion of Freedom, is available wherever you get your books, be it Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and on iTunes. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Richard Nixon, sir, how are you?
Thank you very much, and I hope the Supreme Court keeps following my guide, if you will. We'll see later in the show where they've got an opportunity to continue my guidance, if you will. But what I wanted to talk about, actually, we didn't really talk about it in the show prep, but the evidence is clear now, apparently, that Jumpin' Joe Biden's son, Hunter, and his laptop computer was really legitimate. It was not Russian disinformation, as our intelligence agencies kept pushing. The media bought. We don't know whether the media bought it out of ignorance or whether it was collusion, but it goes so far as to say that 17% of the people who were asked whether or not their opinion when they voted for Trump or Biden would have been different. They say absolutely they would not have voted for Biden in the 2020 election had they known about this deal with his son and the obvious connection between the two vis-a-vis money for favors and so on. So it makes my boy Trump right again.
Yes. Also, we're seeing that Mr. Hunter Biden as well was in court recently. He's facing some paternity issues for a child that he had that he won't acknowledge. So, yeah, and even if you, just for my liberal brothers and sisters out there, I really recommend you go out and read Gabriel Gatehouse. He works for BBC, and Mr. Gatehouse, no friend of Trump. And he said that publicly, but I mean, even himself, he's an investigative journalist, and he's looked into the Hunter Biden laptop story extensively, and he says, yes, there is smoke there and there is fire there.
And, it's very, very true. It's interesting because I've done some family law in my case, in my career, I should say. It's true. It's kind of stunning. But if a woman does something like, for instance, stops taking birth control pills, essentially commits fraud by letting the soon-to-be father of her child, that she can't get pregnant. She does get pregnant. And the father, now the new father, goes into court and said, Your Honor, I shouldn't have to pay child support because she committed fraud. The courts say, sorry, that's not a valid excuse. We don't care. You're not giving that money to her. You're giving the money to the baby.
To the child.
Or the child, if you will. And therefore, even though the mother has committed fraud, the father has to pay.
Irregardless, Joe Biden, get your house in order. We'll be right back.
Attention real estate investors. Do you need cash immediately? If you own one or multiple rental properties, you can use your equity to get cash out fast. The best part is we don't need tax returns or even a good credit score. At America's Loan Source, we are not a bank and we don't have bank rules. We make the decisions to loan you money, and there's no limit how much we can give you. Some clients have gotten as much as $500,000 or more within days. Use the money any way you want. If you own one rental property or 100 and COVID has left you in a cash crunch, we can help you turn your equity into fast cash. Call now for details and close in as little as 10 days and get the cash you need. 800-353-1760. 800-353-1760. 800-353-1760. That's 800-353-1760.
And we are back in the Legal Lounge. Once again, thank you so much for joining us here. All past and previous sessions are available on YouTube, also on Rumble, also as a podcast, SeeRandTalk.com/podcaster. Also, just search for Seer Digital Talk on Rumble and on YouTube and find Richard's playlist. All right, Richard, let's talk a little bit about finances. This is an article titled, Honey, Biden Just Shrunk Our Pension. What's this all about, Richard?
Well, it looks like this is an article by Stephen Moore, M-O-O-R-E. He's a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation, a chief economist at the Freedom Works. We've all seen him on Fox and other news channels. He's an economist, and he says President Joe Biden recently issued his first veto since taking office on January 20, 2021. Biden rejected a bipartisan bill. That's what's interesting. Both sides agreed that would have required investment fund managers to take politics out of their investment decisions and to stay focused on providing the best return to their clients as much as possible. I think it's clear that Mr. Biden made a mistake here.
First veto, of course, of his presidential term. And so, what is ESG? ESG is environmental, social, and governance. It's pretty much activist investing. And Mr. Moore, he makes an interesting point. He says, look, hey, he says he calls himself a socially conscious investor himself. He doesn't like the politics of Ben & Jerry's, for example, so he tries not to buy their ice cream. But he says, to be honest, he loves their ice cream. So do I. So sometimes he gives in to temptation. The left tries to boycott Chick-fil-A because of some of the owner's social policies concerning LGBT stuff.
Exactly.
But the chicken sandwiches are so popular that the crusade failed miserably, and Chick-fil-A is very delicious as well. The problem is that he's saying that he's making these decisions himself. He says, quote, ESG investing is perfectly appropriate when the investors are making their own decisions with their own money on where and what to invest in. But the scandal arises when fund managers that make investment decisions with other people's savings or pension plans start injecting their own political biases in the investment portfolios and choose company stocks that they should or shouldn't buy. So, like you said, Richard, a bipartisan group of Republicans and Democrats in both the Senate and the House came together and says, yes, we think that perhaps, it should go back to how it was, where the only goal of pension fund investors and hedge fund, municipal fund, whatever, it should be about maximizing returns.
Okay. The good news is that more than a dozen Republican governors are fighting back to protect pensions from political influences. They are telling fund managers to their states that ESG is a violation of their duty to workers whose money has been placed in their trust. ESG should be allowed only with the explicit approval of the investor. In other words, politicians and community activists aren't very good stock pickers, so keep your grubby hands off our pensions.
And there's also, I'm getting my crack research staff to weigh on this right now. There's a term of art known as the breach of fiduciary duty.
Right.
And I believe that's policed by the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission.
It might be.
For example, if Richard owns a corporation with a public corporation with stockholders, and if I come to Richard and I say, hey, your stock is trading at $50 a share, I'm going to offer you $100 a share to buy your company. And if Richard says no, he is actually in breach of his fiduciary duty, because what I'm doing, because it's not Richard's company, it's the stockholder's company. And you have a duty to make the best deal for your shareholders.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't want to sell to me.
That's true. That's right. It's like your own money, frankly. And you're supposed to be treating it as you would your own money, that is to enhance it.
Mm-hmm. So could Joe Biden or, these hedge fund managers, pension guys, could they be charged with breach of fiduciary duty?
Absolutely. These managers, these fiduciary people, they're sued all the time because they violate their breach of duty. And so it's nothing new, but this is what he's pointing out, that if these people are actually allowing politics, if you will, to get involved in their decision making, I called my broker. Today's Saturday. I called them Wednesday and asked them, because they mentioned in this article Fidelity and BlackRock. Now, BlackRock seems to be one that is actually doing that, where Fidelity is not. Now, I hope I'm not giving out any bad information. I'm just saying I think. So listeners out there, please check it out to see if your broker or their organization is going woke or so that you might be going broke.
Absolutely.
Check it out.
Yeah, check out and call your broker, call your pension fund manager if you're with like a large, corporation or a public service company or a public service union for that matter. Make sure that your pension is being, you're getting maximized returns.
Yeah, if that's what you want. If you are an ESG person, you like it that way, then fine.
Well, you mentioned something interesting about that, if that's what you want. Because a lot of these pension funds, specifically pension funds when it comes to public sector unions, public sector employees, those are all, collectively bargained. And so pretty much you're out of luck. I have a lot of, friends and family members who work, for the Los Angeles Unified School District, and they pretty much are at the whim of whatever the union wants. And the union, specifically the teachers union, has become very beholden to the Democratic Party. So, I mean, what does, your average school teacher who has to participate in these particular policies, what can they do?
Well, I don't know. It's a little bit too far-fetched for me to answer that right now, Mike, but the main thing is at least you want to find out if their decisions are made to increase your financial status or whether it's impacted by something else. And if it is, you have a right to go, I think you mentioned the SEC or some other institution, or call an attorney, get a free consultation from an attorney to see if you can't right that wrong.
All right, let's move on, Richard, and talk a little bit about the administrative agencies. This is a particular article that was published in the legal paper of record here in Los Angeles and the country, for that matter. It has to do with administrative agencies, and this has to do specifically with a Supreme Court challenge to take on some of these administrative agencies. The name of this case is going to be Loper Bright Enterprises et al. Versus Romaldo. This was filed November 10th, 2022. This is interesting because this has something to do with the Chevron Doctrine. The Chevron Doctrine is known also as the Chevron Deference, where pretty much based on a case, Chevron USA versus the National Resources Defense Council back in 1984, pretty much the Supreme Court said, hey, you know what? If you want to challenge any sort of regulations by the administrative agency state, you got to kind of give them deference. And now we have this case, and we've seen this briefly before with the EPA versus West Virginia, where it looks like this court seems to be a little bit skeptical about the Chevron deference.
Right. And now you used the term doctrine too, right?
Yeah.
So who created that?
Supreme Court.
That's exactly right. So we've got this idea that for those of you who are not really, really schooled in the Constitution, to start again, we have Article 1 that deals with the legislative branch. It makes all the laws under Article 1. Article 2 deals with the power, if you will, or authority of the president. Article 3 deals with the judiciary, or deciding cases that are before it. Now, what's happened here in this administrative law situation, or some call the deep state, is when Congress passes a law, Article 2, under the president, they have authority to enforce that law, but nothing more. Their duty is to not expand what Congress has passed. Congress passes a law A, they are entitled to pass or enact legislation, I shouldn't say legislation, regulations that help enforce.
No, hold that thought, Richard. We're right up against the break. We're going to continue more about this right after the break. Stay with us.
You're experiencing pain, back pain, shoulder, elbow, or hand pain, pain from a sports injury. If so, schedule a visit with Dr. Michael Sheps, the leading expert in laser therapy for pain management. Call 310-873-4422 or go to drsheps.com. Experience Epic T, the breakthrough laser therapy system that Dr. Sheps developed to make you pain-free in less time. Laser therapy is a non-invasive, safe, and effective in-office procedure that penetrates deep into your skin without damaging the tissue. It perfectly targets areas of pain to promote fast, natural healing. Relax your muscles, ease muscle spasms, joint stiffness, and arthritis pain while increasing blood circulation. For over 25 years, Dr. Sheps has helped Olympic athletes and sports enthusiasts alike get back in the game. Schedule your visit with Dr. Sheps at his Brentwood office in California. Call 310-873-4422 or visit drsheps.com. That's DRSHEPS.com, 310-873-4422.
Are you ready to make a difference for the environment while helping the visually impaired at the same time? Then donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind today by calling 800-785-9618. Every donated vehicle will either be properly recycled in an eco-friendly manner or given a new life through reuse. Donating your vehicle is easy. Simply call 1-800-785-9618 and Heritage for the Blind will do the rest. They'll even arrange for your vehicle to be picked up at no cost to you. And for a limited time, when you donate your car, you'll receive a $200 restaurant voucher and a 2-night, 3-day hotel stay at one of 50 locations. Call 800-785-9618 right now to schedule your tax-deductible vehicle donation and make a positive impact on the environment while helping others. Heritage for the Blind, where every car donation counts and every person makes a difference. Call 1-800-785-9618 now.
Hi, this is Fred Dwyer talking about my favorite Italian restaurant, Angelo's and Vinci's at 550 North Harbor Boulevard in downtown Fullerton. A fantastic place to eat. Come inside and dine in our Italian town square, complete with a 10-foot Christmas tree. That's right, 10 feet. Enjoy our food made from secret family recipes. Pasta, chicken, seafood, salads, and our delicious pizza. Incredible desserts, including my favorite, the tiramisu, flown directly in from Italy. Feel the spirit at Angelo and Vinci's, 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton, California. Call 714-879-4022 or visit angelosandvincis.com. That's angelosandvincis.com.
And we are back in the Legal Lounge once again. Thank you so much for joining us. We're talking about the Chevron Doctrine, otherwise known as the Chevron Deference. Deference meaning that the courts previously under the Chevron Doctrine would defer to the administrative agencies. And why is this important? It's important because Congress, as Richard said, shall make law. But what we're seeing now, not only does the Supreme Court or the courts in general make law, but the administration itself makes law through its regulatory state, aka the deep state. Richard, please continue.
Okay, yes. After we talked about, we've explained the fact that it's Congress and only Congress that makes laws under Article 1. And Article 2, the president and those in the cabinets underneath him are sworn to enforce those laws. Now, the rub is where Congress passes a law, A, and instead of the administrative state, or some refer to them as the deep state, instead of them they're following A very closely. They do things not authorized under A. And so the issue becomes to what extent they've done that. And it looks like, according to President Trump and others, it goes back to Coolidge, our 40th president, where the administrative state has ballooned way, 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 way beyond what I use the term elastic limit, that it was actually authorized by Congress. Now, the significance of that is this. When Congress passes a law, those people are accountable to we, the people, or to us, if you will. When the administrative state enacts a regulation, they are not responsible to us. They are not accountable to us. We can't get rid of them. The only person that can get rid of them is the president. And he can fire, he can dismantle, undo, let's say the education department, which people have been clamoring about for years, get rid of the whole department. And he also, and Trump was on his way doing this, every regulation that Trump passed, he nullified 20, as I understand it. So that's the argument here. To what extent, if there is an ambiguity, should the administrative state be able to resolve its own conflict, or do we have to go back to Congress and have them resolve it? And that's kind of the issue.
Well, that was what Chief Justice John Roberts, a.k.a. Swinging John Roberts, even though he was kind of on the right side of history on this one, that's what he asserted in the EPA versus West Virginia case.
Right.
Where he pretty much says, look, you guys can't shut down coal-fired power plants nationwide via just executive fiat through the EPA, which is an administrative agency. you need to get specific permission from Congress because this is a matter, I can't remember the words he exactly used, but a matter of great national and economic concern.
And the Supreme Court also undid, if you will, OSHA and its attempt to make it mandatory that any company with more than 100 employees had to get their COVID
the vaccine
shots and
mandate.
so on.
Yeah, correct. Yes.
I'm sorry, say it
The
again.
vaccine mandate. Yes, correct.
And the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. That is to say, the administrative state did not have authority to do that.
And a friend of the show, Neil Gorsuch, he's kind of the man when it comes to administrative law. And he seems pretty willing to go along with Roberts as he did in the EPA case,
Yes.
where, this is regulatory power not enforced by Congress, but enforced by the executive branch. And that seems anathema to Article 1.
And not accountable to the people. That's the main thing. Every time there's a conflict, if you look deeper, you'll see Thomas Jefferson hiding behind a bush, and you'll see he's saying it's got to be accountable to the people or it's no good. And that's why we have another article, maybe we'll get to it today, about how Jefferson says where the federal government oversees its authority, we, the states, have a right to avoid that law. Now, that's really sticking it out there, but he doesn't.
Yeah, we're going to get into that to a nullification later on the show. It's quite fascinating. And also, we should be noted, too, that the newest justice, Miss Brown Jackson, she's recused herself in this particular case because I guess she represented one of the parties before in oral arguments before she joined the court. So this will be an 8-person decision, and that'll be a conservative 6-2 majority. So this seems pretty likely that we might see some pretty dramatic changes.
Yes, and I'd like to see that because, again, it's consistent with, I think, the principles of this show, that we the people own this country, and to the extent that unelected people make decisions for us, we've lost that issue. We've lost our freedom. Hence the name of my book, America, An Illusion of Freedom. That is, to the extent that we follow rules or regulations made by people we did not elect, we've lost all accountability.
Yeah, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that absolute power comes from unchecked power when you're not checked by the voters at all. So,
absolutely.
There you go, you guys. Stick around. We'll be right back right after the break to talk more. We're going to talk about nullification. We're going to talk about some Second Amendment issues as well. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past 2 years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify. 800-349-6855. 800-349-6855. 800-349-6855. That's 800-349-6855.
When you really want Italian food, you have got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Today, it seems so hard to enjoy just a little bit of easy. So much of life seems to get in the way. But fear not, seekers of fabulous food and fun and thrill. Columbo's is Southern California's answer to Easy Street. Great grub with some of the finest steaks, the freshest fish awaiting for you to devour. Did I mention Columbo's family Italian recipes? Columbo's spaghetti bolognese, their chicken pesto ravioli, magnifico, and of course, the world's greatest meatballs. I can go on. But why go on when you can go on over to Columbo's and experience delicious and easy for yourself? Columbo's, of course, that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, mangia bene.
Enjoy Tiki Live, the best cable alternative choice today, with hundreds of premium live TV programming, including ESPN, CNN, Fox News, Disney, AMC, Bravo, XF, OWN, and CRN Talk. Plus no contracts and low month-to-month service. Tiki Live, servicing North America, including the Caribbean. To get started, visit TikiLive.com to order hundreds of channels, including CRN Talk, at a fraction of what you're paying today. Visit TikiLive.com. That's TikiLive.com.
Are you ready to make a difference for the environment while helping the visually impaired at the same time? Then donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind today by calling 800-785-9618. Every donated vehicle will either be properly recycled in an eco-friendly manner or given a new life through reuse. Donating your vehicle is easy. Simply call 1-800-785-9618 and Heritage for the Blind will do the rest. They'll even arrange for your vehicle to be picked up at no cost to you. And for a limited time, when you donate your car, you'll receive a $200 restaurant voucher and a 2-night, 3-day hotel stay at one of 50 locations. Call 800-785-9618 right now to schedule your tax-deductible vehicle donation and make a positive impact on the environment while helping others. Heritage for the Blind, where every car donation counts and every person makes a difference. Call 1-800-785-9618 now.
Hi, I'm Dennis Bono. Join me every Saturday at 6 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. for the Dennis Bono Show live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. Enjoy this fun-filled hour with my celebrity friends as they perform, visit, and have lots of fun with me in front of a live audience in the showroom at the South Point Hotel. Please join me Saturday, 6 p.m. Pacific, Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, right here on CRN Radio and crntalk.com.
And we are back in Legal Lounge. Once again, thank you so much for joining us here. Talk a little bit about Second Amendment constitutional law here and some discrepancies between state law and federal law post Brune decision. This is a case called People versus Boca Negra. This is a Third Circuit Court of Appeals, I believe, Richard. And this is
Yes, it is.
This is a state case. Briefly, very briefly, the facts of the case are Mr. Bocanera, there's some issues with his wife and another man. Anyways, he let a couple fly, apparently, with an assault weapon. He was convicted on several charges, including Penal Code Section 30605, which provides any person who within this state possesses any assault weapon, except as provided in this chapter, shall be punished by imprisonment in a county jail for a period not exceeding 1 year. Mr. Bocanegra, he very smartly, I think, he appealed this and citing that his Second Amendment rights were violated by this particular charge in light of the recent Brune decision.
Right. And the Supreme Court, this Court of Appeal, 3rd District in San Joaquin, California, said possession of an assault weapon charge did not violate defendant's Second Amendment right because an AR-15 rifle is not a weapon typically possessed by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes. Now, I know Mike's going to have something to say about that, but before he does, we have to give a few more facts here. The jury found defendant not guilty of attempted murder because what he did is he shot some bullets into the home through a window, but not at anyone necessarily. But found him guilty of assault with a firearm. That's true. Possession of an assault weapon. Now that's the one he challenged. Discharging a firearm in a grossly negligent manner, causing a concealed firearm to be carried in a vehicle while an occupant, and found true an allegation that in committing assault with a firearm, defendant personally used a firearm in the commission of a felony. And of course, what he was challenging, the only thing he was challenging, is the possession of a so-called assault weapon. And the court uses this term very much. It's a firearm including an AR-15 style rifle. It's not necessarily that it's an AR-15, but apparently their argument is this kind of gun is not or was not commonly used traditionally and therefore it's not covered under Bruin. And of course, they quote Bruin, and it does say something about history and tradition and so on. But I don't know if they're talking about. They're ignoring the fact that it's probably one of the most commonly used long rifles in the country.
Absolutely, yeah. It's completely, yeah. History, tradition, ubiquity, and that AR-15 style rifle is ubiquitous here in American culture with 10 million plus in circulation. This is what's interesting to me, Richard, about this case.
Yes.
Is that this is a state court decision. However, friend of the show, Judge Benitez down there in San Diego, he's a senior judge for the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of California. In a case that you and I have discussed extensively, this is Miller versus Bonta. This is a lawsuit to this particular California assault weapons ban. And Judge Benitez pretty much ruled in favor of the plaintiffs here, saying that the California assault weapons ban is unconstitutional. Fast forward this particular case, then this Miller versus Bonta goes to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit stayed Benitez's ruling pending further litigation. And so it seems to me that we have several different courts' opinions. We have the Supreme Court in Bruin saying one thing. We have Benitez and Miller versus Bonta saying another thing, and then we have the California Court of Appeals saying something else in this particular case, this Boca Negra case. How does this get all sorted out?
Well, what's interesting, of course, I think the thread that's running through the other two, other than this particular Court of Appeals case here in California, was the weapon is used for defense. Here, there's no question he was using it in offense.
Okay. So the facts of the case matter here.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And he was intending, I shouldn't say he was intending to hurt someone, because he could very well have killed somebody. He purposely found that they weren't, that is to say, this friend of his, long friend of his, and a girl were not where he could hit them. He wanted to scare the heck out of them, and he did. So he's got that, if you will, in his favor, but it was used in an offensive manner. And remember, all the cases coming from Bruin, et cetera, Heller and all of them, they always stress used for defense.
Well, okay, so Mr. Bocanegra, so the California Court of Appeals was like, sorry, buddy, like this statute stands, our assault weapons ban stands, and you're going to do a year in the pokey for this. Couldn't Mr. Bocanegra himself or through counsel submit a habeas brief saying, look, Bruin says right here that this is not, the Bruin says kind of, I'm extrapolating here, that this assault weapons ban is unconstitutional. I'm being held for a crime that has been deemed by Bruin to be unconstitutional. Let me out. Wouldn't that work for him? Or?
Well, I don't think so, because, again, if the judge looked at the facts of the case, again, he would see that this person used this gun in an offensive manner other than self-defense, and I think he would just dismiss that.
So the hypo would be, though, if Mr. Bocanegra, instead of, we don't want to be tawdry here, but one Mr. Verdon was trying to sleep with Mr. Bocanegra's wife.
Right.
And so Mr. Bocanegra took great offense to that and tried to shoot up the motel that they're at. Right. But let's say Mr. Bocanegra was just pulled over and they found an AR-15 in his trunk. He would have a better case than that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because there's no intent to act in an offensive manner with that gun or weapon.
Okay, so we need to find a case where there's no real. So if anybody out there wants to challenge this, throw your AR-15 in your trunk and try to get pulled over, and maybe you'll end up in front of the Supreme Court sometime.
And by the way, he also had a nice, shiny 1911 style handgun. Now, what is that, Mike? A 1911?
A Colt government model.
That's like an automatic.
Yeah, an automatic.
Has a magazine.
Yeah, like the standard issue, U.S. Army pistol all the way up to the 90s.
That's quite a popular gun, I guess.
It really is, and I wonder if that was on California's handgun roster.
So this defendant here, he knew what he was doing with these guns.
He seemed to be a firearm aficionado. So, all right. So stick around, you guys. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about an interesting legal theory, a constitutional theory known as nullification, that was purported by a friend of the show, TJ Thomas Jefferson. Stick around. We'll be right back right after the break, students.
No more mold. No more damage. No more outdated old bathroom. No more slipping and hurting. No more stress. Make your ordinary bathroom extraordinary for only $99 per month. New shower, new door, new tub, new wall, new anti-slip technology. Be stress-free. Call 800-973-5411. BCI Bath and Shower is made in America for the highest quality. Ask about our military and senior discounts. Your dream bathroom in as little as 1 day. First 50 callers save $1,500 on a never clear glass treated door. Call now for free premium color upgrades. 800-973-5411. Call BCI Bath and Shower, the leader in bathroom remodeling. Be smart, safe, and stay a step ahead of inflation with our interest-free financing options. Call 800-973-5411. Love your bathroom with free upgrades. Call 800-973-5411. 800-973-5411.
Hi, this is Fred Dreyer talking about my favorite Italian restaurant, Angelo's and Vinci's at 550 North Harbor Boulevard in downtown Fullerton. A fantastic place to eat. Come inside and dine in our Italian town square, complete with a 10-foot Christmas tree. That's right, 10 feet. Enjoy our food made from secret family recipes. Pasta, chicken, seafood, salads, and our delicious pizza. Incredible desserts, including my favorite, the tiramisu, flown directly in from Italy. Feel the spirit at Angelo and Vinci's, 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton, California. Call 714-879-4022 or visit angelosandvincis.com. That's angelosandvincis.com.
And we are back in the Legal Lounge. Thank you so much once again for joining us here. Make sure to check out Richard's fantastic book, America, An Illusion of Freedom. It's available wherever fine books are sold, including Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes. Once again, the name of the book, America, An Illusion of Freedom. The author, Mr. Richard Nixon, and we're back to his show. This is going to talk a little bit about, comes from the 10th Amendment Center. This is written by Janindi Storakvif. Sorry about that, Janindi. The second, he's obviously not from around these parts, but he wrote a fantastic argument for nullification and the limited government based on the writings, teachings, and philosophy of friend of the show, Thomas Jefferson. What do you think about this, Richard?
I absolutely agree, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't recognize that, of course, it takes some chutzpah, if you will, to even consider doing this, because what Jefferson was arguing, at least in his 1798 Kentucky resolutions, was to not only ignore what Congress has done if it exceeds the 10th Amendment. Now, remember, the 10th Amendment says this: the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Now, so that's basically saying if the Constitution does not give a particular power or authority to the federal government, it remains within the states and the people. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about Thomas Jefferson, among other things, is that he says if the federal government does overstep its bounds, it's really not enough to say you can't do that. That's within the states' rights and the people's. You, according to this 1798 Kentucky resolution, you have a right to declare that federal law void and not obey it. And I find that very interesting. I don't know what that would cause if we resurrected that theory today.
So the doctrine of nullification is that the idea that the states have the right to unilaterally render void an act of the federal government that they perceive to be contrary to the Constitution. Right. And as you mentioned, TJ finds it in his 1798 Kentucky resolutions. Also, just to skip ahead real fast, Johnson, because we've talked about this extensively, is that Jefferson warned against construing the necessary and proper clause so broadly as to justify the assumption of undelegated powers by the general government. The intent of the clause was only to enable the execution of limited powers, not to identify, extend the general government's scope. Okay, so backing up to this nullification, so let's say the federal government does something completely wacky.
Right.
And this idea of nullification is that the states say, look, no, we're not doing that. We find it unconstitutional, not only in the federal constitution, but our own state constitutions. We're not doing this. How does that jive with the supremacy clause, though?
Well, that's right. What's interesting about it, of course, the supremacy clause, which is Article 6, see if I can find it real fast, basically says that this Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. So it basically says, if there's a conflict between federal law and state law, federal law predominates. It is the law. However, as we talked about in our show prep, if the federal law is illegitimate, that is to say, if they've exceeded their authority as defined under the 10th Amendment, then it would appear as though they don't have to follow Article 6, that is the supremacy clause. But what do you do in that particular case? You can have a standoff or a constitutional crisis, as they say. In fact, it puts me in mind of Richard Nixon. One of the reasons why he decided to quit instead of fighting on is because there could have been a constitutional crisis, because theoretically, those people who were enforcing him with doctrines to oust him from the office of president were basically under his authority. Mr. Nixon could have said to them, sit down and be quiet. I'm not listening to any subpoenas. I'm the one that enforces the law, no one else. He chose to allow himself to be enforced or forced to quit. And some people say he could have stood his ground, but it would have been constitutional crisis.
Yeah, some people argue that he just could have, I think the quote was, barbecue those tapes on the White House lawn. He would have been in his power. But this is interesting because you have nullification that not really talked about, and that was a check on the states, the check on the federal power from the states.
Yes.
We also had apportionment, which was the previous tax system where the states would collect taxes, they would levy and collect taxes, and then apportion that to the government themselves, taking the federal government out. And that was also a check on a federal government too, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And it seems nowadays, it's sadly, I think, to both of our laments, is that there's no real check on federal power from the states themselves.
No, there isn't. And as long as you have two branches, which you've had for a long time, which started with Marbury and McCulloch versus Maryland and so on, as long as you've got two of the branches of the federal government in cahoots, if you will, where one is honoring more authority for the other and the other is returning the favor by giving it more power, there's no end to it. It just keeps blossoming, if you will. But now we do have some hope. That is to say, thank you, Mr. Trump, again, for nominating these three, the latest Supreme Court justices.
Who seem to be far more...
they seem to be of the mind that they're going to self-limit themselves, and that's exactly what we need.
Stick around, you guys. We'll be right back, wrap things up in the Legal Lounge.
When you first start using them, it's a slow drip. You make charges, then more charges, then bills come, and they keep coming. When you open your statements, the floodgates come pouring in. You realize you have more credit card debt than you can afford, and you're barely making the minimum payments. Wouldn't it be nice to make one affordable payment and have all your credit card bills covered? Make this free call and learn our responsible way to get your credit card bills paid and under control.
Sponsored by Consumer Education Services, a nonprofit organization.
800-876-3643. 800-876-3643. 800-876-3643. That's 800-876-3643.
CESI is not a loan company. The establishment of a debt management plan may adversely affect your credit rating. Non-payment of debt may lead creditors to increase finance and other charges to undertake collection activity, including liquidation.
When you really want Italian food, you have got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Today, it seems so hard to enjoy just a little bit of easy. So much of life seems to get in the way. But fear not, seekers of fabulous food and fun and thrill. Columbo's is Southern California's answer to Easy Street. Great grub with some of the finest steaks, the freshest fish awaiting for you to devour. Did I mention Columbo's family Italian recipes? Columbo's spaghetti bolognese, their chicken pesto ravioli, magnifico, and of course, the world's greatest meatballs. I can go on. But why go on when you can go on over to Columbo's and experience delicious and easy for yourself? Columbo's, of course, that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, mangia bene.
Do you want to fly somewhere, anywhere in the world? Smart travelers call myflightsearch.com for the best deals on flight tickets. Going to Manila, Bangkok, London, how about Singapore? Call myflightsearch.com for the lowest flight tickets available. What about a local vacation? Let's say you want to fly to Vegas, Orlando, Miami, Los Angeles, or Denver. Pick up the phone and call myflightsearch.com right now. We have exclusive deals that you can't find anywhere else. The only way you can get these low airline prices is by calling us. We have so many low prices available, we can't possibly tell them to you right here and now. If you're flying somewhere anytime in the next 6 months and you want the lowest airline ticket prices anywhere, you owe it to yourself to save a ton of money. So pick up your cell phone and call myflightsearch.com right now.
Call 800-445-3166. 800-445-3166. That's 800-445-3166. Call now. 800-445-3166.
And we are back in the Legal Lounge. Thank you so much once again for joining us here. Make sure to check out Richard's fantastic book, American Illusion of Freedom, available where fine books are sold. Also, make sure to check out past and previous episodes, available on Rumble and on YouTube, and as a podcast, SeaRandTalk.com/podcaster. Richard, you and I were just chatting during the break, and you came up with a fascinating idea that I think needs to be exposed here to the public. Why don't you please go ahead and tell me what you told me over the break?
Yeah, it's kind of off the subject here that we usually talk about fairly serious things, but I watch on occasion a show called Shark Tank. And for those of you who haven't seen it, it's usually 4 or 5, let's just say wealthy individuals, 3 or 4 men and 2 or 3 women. And someone presents an item to them, a process or a product, and asks these people, these rich people, if you will, to give them some money in exchange for a percentage of their business. And I don't know, it seems to be 50-50. They reject a lot of these people. On the other hand, they go right ahead and accept and give them money. So anyway, this was an interesting one because they actually gave them money for this idea. And that was these two young men from Santa Monica have this idea that if you eat this berry that they can produce for you, you eat it, and everything you eat tastes sweet. So that if you, especially kids, if you hate certain things like broccoli or cabbage or whatever you hate that you can't stand the taste of, you eat this pill and automatically everything is sweet. So you'll end up eating foods that are good for you because they're sweet tasting. And I was amazed that 2 or 3 of these so-called sharks actually went in and gave them some money. And I was thinking all along, wait a minute, you guys have this backward. You could have the greatest diet pill in the world if you could make a pill that made ice cream and candy and chocolate, which I love, taste bad, taste sour. I wouldn't eat the ice cream or candy. It would be the most effective diet on earth, yet no one mentioned it. And for any of you people out there that have the same kind of cravings, pass it on. Let's find that pill because I need it.
Wait, hold on, Richard. Just real fast. I mean, I understand the premise of your question here, and it sounds interesting, but I mean, why don't you just not buy and eat the things that you're not supposed to buy and to eat?
It's difficult because especially it's okay if a person lives by themselves, but if you live with any other people or if you socialize, if you go out and if you watch TV like I do once in a while, every other item is either going on a diet or selling hamburgers or pizza or whatever. It's impossible not to overeat in this generation or in this population, if you will.
Yeah, you drive down the street too, and you smell the donuts that are just fresh out of the fryer coming from the donut shop. You're next to the hamburger stand with the roasting meat wafting through your nostrils.
Here's the thing too: if you could invent that pill, guess what the manufacturers of the hamburgers and pizzas would do? They would buy you out.
You think?
Oh my God, would they ever? You'd be a billionaire overnight, and I can't believe that I'm giving away this idea.
Okay, so
for nothing.
So any venture capitalists out there, angel investors, any of those sharks out there, they want to get in on this, which is a pill to make anything that normally tastes good taste terrible.
Yes.
In order to control your diet, please reach out to us here at Sierra Digital Talk Radio.
And you know what? There might be such a pill. That'll show my ignorance, but I don't think there is.
Yeah.
Or I would have it, I think.
Well, if anybody has any recommendations out there to keep Richard, I mean, you've lost. You look great, Richard. I mean, you're down to like what, $1.82, $1.81
now, yes.
183, and so what's the goal? 175, or
absolutely.
All right, well,
that'd be my fighting weight, my Marciano weight.
Okay. All right, Richard. We're out of time. Thank you so much once again for joining us here in the Legal Lounge. All past and previous sessions are available on YouTube and on Rumble, and as a podcast at SieranTalk.com/podcaster. Until next week, we'll see you guys in the Legal Lounge here on Sierra Digital Talk Radio. See you guys next week.